Hey guys, BJ the Brave here. I'm back with a deck guide for you today. This one is my main deck that I have been climbing with this season. I call it B Empire. That could stand for, my empire, BJ's empire. Or it could stand for the fact that we run version in Empire, 2 copies in fact. So what I want to do very quickly in this deck guide is, rather than just go through every card, we're all familiar with the Tau cards now. I'm just going to kind of like talk about why I think this is a really good deck to climb with right now, and even into the new Chaos release, and really how this quite subtly differentiates itself from some of the Onvar lists, some of the Shadow Sun lists, some of the previous lists that I've done before. Okay, so the main thing that I want to really just sort of mention off the bat with this deck is that you'll notice that we are running Commander or Mesos, not Onvar. And I actually think both of those warlords are kind of like tier 1 right now. But I prefer this very narrowly at the minute. And here's why. So the first thing with Mesos is that when you run a Mesos, you don't have a problem Onvar has, which is the early game. Okay? Mesos, through his Warlord ability, can actually generate, very similar to like Galen, putting a body on the board, a 3 health flyer every single turn. There's a lot of variety that we can do with Mesos. For example, we can put down Vanguards later in the game when we need to block something. We do run the experimental drones, more on that later, so that Vanguard can become shielded, which is very, very powerful. But early game, we can play gun drones out. We can play marker lights where we want. So Commander or Mesos just means we don't need to worry about the early game. With that said, that means we don't need to play things like missile drones. We don't need to look for kind of cheaper units to drop on the first turn, because we've got a guarantee of that. Now, what that does from a deck building point of view, as you know, the Tau cards are all pretty strong, so it frees us up to put some other things in. One of the things that it frees us up to put in is the Persian Empire, and I actually love this card, and I think this card is fantastic in this deck. What happens often, for example, in mirror matches against Tau, is that the Persian Empire is often the MVP, because we're very tit for tat. We're tit for tat with trading. We've got similar cards. It's very close until we get to like a later game turn 7, turn 8. One of us, usually there, have like 1 or 2 cards left, and we have a 0 costing Persian Empire from obviously the reductions from killing the units, and then we draw, and then we gain card advantage, and that allows us to then overwhelm even other Tau decks with our value. Other things that allow us to overwhelm other Tau decks with our value are the experimental drones that we play in this. If we get the shield down on the drones and they don't, then we are leagues ahead. And we also play Cold Star, and I have to say, guys, I was really down on the Cold Star. I have not found another deck where I've liked Cold Star, but in this deck, the Cold Star has literally been one of the best cards in the deck at times. This is the deck for the Cold Star. It works incredibly well. It means that we have more drones usually over our opponents, and again, the exponential effect of having that with the experimental drones, the shield, makes that this card absolutely insane, and it allows us to be able to go deep into the late game. With the Persian Empire, we can draw through the deck and usually see all of our cards, which is another thing that I really like about it. And it's not uncommon for you to be playing getting a full value package out of some of the cards that we have in here. So for example, the Broadside. Now the Broadside Battlesuit, we all know, superb body on its own, but it's not uncommon in this deck that I'll be able to play the Broadside plus 2 missile drones. You can imagine the Cold Star giving them plus 2 health. That makes them 5 health and shielded. And often, if you've got your Savior Protocols off, you could get all of that for literally 5 energy, which is just unparalleled in the game, quite frankly. So what this means is that with this deck, we can go late game, we can play Orc Control and go tough and go, okay, drag it out to late game. We're quite happy with that. We'll accumulate our pieces. It's almost a bit more like a combo deck. We can play it that way in for the late game, and we can even outvalue the Orcs. So it is a superbly powerful deck. As I said earlier, using our Mesos to kind of pull out the shield drones, not shield drones, what do they call them? yeah, Guardian drones with the Vanguard and everything, and then putting like armor on those again, like Cold Star on the field, that makes that 5 health. It can get very, very silly quick. Now, the other thing is, you might say, well, one of the weaknesses of this deck not having on VAR is we don't have access to Storm of Fire. And originally, I was thinking about actually putting a copy of Storm of Fire in the deck, and then through playing this deck extensively, it's probably my most played deck this season. I realised that you don't need it. Why don't you need it? Well, because you run 2 Ethereals. You run, if you haven't got on VAR, don't worry, you've got the Honoured Ethereal, and you've got On She. Now, all it means is that we just have to think a little bit harder about when we play these cards, like thinking a little bit more about the Serene Unifier. Generally speaking, when these cards are played, and often survive, as they often do, because they're tough and they've got shields, I want to try and bank a Storm of Fire off the Serene Unifier the next turn. So, I've not found that to be an issue, and it's been pretty easy and quite common that I have still won games with Storm of Fire, because we've got the double ethereal. So that's a real major tactic that you want to be looking for in the deck. Of course, we've got like similar stuff with like Carrion tactics and Fusillade for the clears. We've got openings like Savior Protocols into Piranha for insane openings, but we also have other insane openings, like we can drop Stealth Drone first turn into DS8's turret, which is fantastic. The DS8's also really good in this deck because, again, like I said, with our Mesos, we can put Vanguards down whenever we want, so we can play a Vanguard next to a DS8, for example, and if they're shielded, it's even more insane. If they've got Cold Star buff, it's even more insane. So yeah, the deck works very well. So what this basically means is it's a Tau deck that has slightly less in the kind of 2-3 drops, 2 drops, and sort of slightly more in the kind of late game cards. But we use those late game cards like the B Empire to kind of draw into these value packages and these combos. So it's just a really fluid, really smooth deck. It's absolutely fantastic. And what I found is the only games I seem to lose really with this are when I make the wrong judgment and the wrong decision about, for example, playing Savior Protocols, which is obviously a tempo loss, but will give us a massive tempo gain later, and similar experimental drones, which again is a bigger tempo loss, playing 5 energy for nothing, but then as we start to play our drones, we get that value and that tempo back. So the games where I've lost, where I've miscalculated when to play these. So if you play these when you should be trying to fight for tempo, that will often lose you a game. So you've got to be really careful, like know what you're playing against, when you need to play for tempo, when you can afford to take that turn off. Reminds me a little bit of Orcs with things like the armor card or the heal cards, you know, similar with those decks where you have to kind of like decide, is now a safe turn to actually play those. So yeah, I want to jump into some games and kind of like just show you how this deck works. I'm really happy with this deck, and I think it's a really powerful, somewhat busted deck if I'm honest. The last thing that I added into the deck, by the way, was for the greater good. I want to shout out Cube Captain, who I've talked about in my other videos before. The guy's a really top player. He's in the top 15 or 16 at the minute, and he doesn't even play that much. And I always like his interesting takes on deck building. He gave me the idea for this shell, and he was running one of the 5-drop marksman to start with, and I really don't like that card after play testing. I actually dropped it for the second Vespid, which he's now put in, but I've since dropped the second Vespid to put in the greater good, because I think this card is just too good, and it's fantastic in this deck as well. And I'm pretty happy with that in there. So this is the deck. One of the things that is, before we jump into some games, one of the cards that is omitted from this deck, which you might think is quite strange, is the 4-drop. It is the stealth suit. Now, this is when I say what I'm about to say, guys. I'm not making an argument about like what I've got in this deck is good and the stealth suit is bad. The stealth suit is a awesome card. It is not a bad card. So I'm not talking about good versus bad. We're talking about good versus good in this debate, right? But all I'm saying is that in this specific, and I love stealth suits in many of my other decks, and it's great in the Onvar decks, but in this specific deck, believe it or not, the tower's so busted that it's actually a little bit slow, right? Like if I'm playing that stealth suit out, and then I'm spending turn 5 playing the crisis suit, and I don't have the heal, like remember Onvar has can for 1 energy then heal both of the units, whereas you can't do that with Commander or Mesos. It's actually it's actually a loss against Onvar, and it's actually a little bit slow anyway for what we're trying to do with our game plan. So it's no problem not having it in this deck. We have plenty of good 4-drops in here. If we've got the Savior Protocols off, we'll go down the Piranha route. If we haven't, we can play Honored, Ethereal, or Crisis Bodyguard, for example, on 4. So we really don't need it. And then on 5, we are really looking to play into our broadside battlesuits or our experimental drones, etc. Or even sometimes our DS8 with a blocker. You know, that's sometimes a good turn 5 play. Alright, so what I want to do is just talk about the mulligans quickly. What I'm looking for is those combos, right? So I'll only usually keep Piranha if I get Savior Protocols. We would always keep Savior Protocols if we do get it. I usually will keep the Vespid if I get it, and I'll keep the DS8s, and often the Stealth Drone with DS8 together is very good. Depending on my hand, if it's not great, I sometimes will keep Pathfinder, because Pathfinder can be quite good, especially if we're going second and we're playing against something that's like a tempo deck and we want to fight it like an enemy Tau. Sometimes just dropping the Pathfinder straight away is the correct thing to do, because we know in the late game we can eke out value. I also do keep Burgeoning Empire in my opening hand, pretty much all the time, to be honest. Sometimes if I'm going first and I really need tempo, I will get rid of it. But certainly if I'm going second, I've got 4 cards, I'll keep it. I'd prefer to keep it because it almost guarantees that by turn 7-8, this is costing almost nothing. And I can draw and kind of take over the late game. Don't worry about playing early game for tempo and not getting full value, like dropping a broadside on 5 with nothing else. That's absolutely fine, because in the late game when we draw our second copies and stuff, we are almost always going to outvalue our opponent with this deck. It's like one of the most ultimate value decks in the game. Like I said, it can kind of like even beat like a Ghazghkull value fatigue deck. So speaking of Ghazghkull, obviously if you are playing the control match, you just need to be a little bit mindful of not overplaying, like not giving him like Will of Gork for like an entire wide board. So you just got to think about that and try to make use of or Mesos and get value out of that, and really get the experimental drones down early. So if you've got any other questions, guys, about how the deck actually works, any specific tactics that you want, just hit me up in the comments down below. Please like the video if you're enjoying it so far, and if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I do get a lot of return in viewers, which is fantastic, but I also do have a pretty high percentage of people who aren't yet subscribed who watch the video. So, you know, again, if it's useful, I really appreciate that. We're chasing down 1,000 subs, so I really appreciate your support. Right, let us jump into some games that I've got saved for you and take a look. So, yeah, so first of all, I'm just going to show you this game. This one's against the new Abaddon, and it's really just like quite a good game, and just kind of showing like the tempo and value of the deck that you can pull out. So you can see here, we actually just kept the DS8 in that deck, and then we drew into Savior. We did choose the Warp Storm because, generally speaking, like getting a drone for 1, we're happy with that exchange, that trade off versus what he gets from that. So here we go. We got Savior Protocols on the first turn, which is really important, and then we can follow that up with the gun drone, and obviously use our hero power on the very next turn. So it's super powerful, really using that offense card against him. He comes back really well here though. Look, he's got the Hellfire, which gets rid of that, and then he plays the Spawn-dom, and that enables him to clear. So I don't want to call that lucky, but you know, after such a powerful start from us, he did feel a little bit unlucky getting into that, but hey, we played the Savior Protocol, so now we can drop the Piranha, and now look, the drones are free, so we can kind of like fill our board and just get rid of one of the spawn. So we did have a flanker, but again, with no range attack, he's really struggling with our flyers, so he just has to kind of heal and attack to put a bit of damage on the drone, and we draw into our next Piranha. And now we've got this horrific combination where we could even play the second DS8 with all the drones, or we can just play out the drone companion. So you can see against Chaos, by the way, if you're playing on VAR, it's the same. You really always want to take that offense card against them, and you're going to get a lot of Chaos at the minute, right? Because a lot of people are playing it for the campaign. So playing the Warp Storm against them really hurts. Really hurts the Chaos. Anyway, he manages to kind of like traitors, haters. He's trying to AoE, he's trying to do something to address the board. Down comes the Warp Talon. Gun drones do a bit of pinging, mark a light on the Warlord, we actually dig into the deck and we sort of set up for next turn really with the Pathfinder, because we've already got the Savior Protocols out and everything, so we know we can get great value off the Pathfinder. Just again looking to kind of try and block, forcing this guy to attack a block drone was really superb for us. And he's kind of like hitting and hoping. He got a little bit lucky there as well, actually hit the target he wanted with the Hell Strike. But again, marked up, we can just kind of like destroy that. And now again, we can drop the Enforcer and the drones are free. So you see like the insane value that we get out of this deck now. Savior Protocols and Piranha is just so good. And because we've built the deck in a way where, you know, once we've passed those first couple of turns, we're just always drawing like mid-sized bombs, really. Because we don't need to run those like missile drones on their own, like early units and stuff. So it's just superb. So powerful, it's so relentless. We take the Persian in Empire here, we got it down to 2. Yeah, so for 2 energy, draw 3. Not bad. And it just allows us to kind of like completely refuel. And when all our cards have so much in the package, it's so much value in these packages. It's just insane. Like drawing 3 cards, it's almost like drawing 5, 6 cards in a way. Okay, so that was that game. Let's jump into some others that I pinned. Where's the... Yeah, so I pinned some other games. So I'm going to play this one against Home Tree, nonetheless, which is this was Home Tree, who is one of the guild members, and he's actually playing my Zagstruck control deck. But I'm looking, the thing in this deck is in this matchup is like I'm looking for the experimental drones synergy, so I'm actually going to keep that. Persian Empire, as I say, and then the early DS8. These are really good cards in this matchup. We know he can take out our drones with Zagstruck pretty easily, so we have to look for a kind of alternative approach. So we just drop the stealth drone, knowing that we can play into the DS8, and obviously he's going to go and clear that out, and then he gets the mucking about. So now we drop the drone and we find the actual second stealth. Plays the Gretchen mob. We're just going to drop the this guy down on 5. Like I said before, we're not worried about the first one playing down on 5 and losing value. This deck has got so much value packed into it. We just got to make it through to those later turns to realise that. We're not worried about running out of value. There's absolutely no problem with that. Plus we had the stealth drone down, so we get this guy disguised as well, which is just lovely. But unfortunately for us, he has the second no looking about in hand before turn 5. So yeah, well played, Home Tree. Clears that out, and we obviously just get rid of this final grot. And then we're on turn 6, so we can drop the Piranha here and get 1 discount on the gun drones and just rebuild our board. And this is what I mean about these mid-game bombs. Once we're into this stage of the game, just keep putting the damage down. Now, obviously, Orcs are the kind of the function of the faction of answers. So what's he got? Well, that's pretty good. Obviously, Mr. Orc Knob is going to clear one of them as well. Slightly ahead on board, and he's ahead on life total. So we do something here which is a little bit risky. We put okay, so we used the Markalite. This was actually a friendly match, which is why I ended up with that defense, because you don't actually select that in a friendly. But what I can do now is just drop a drone off to a clear board, which is shielded. So it's all about finding that turn where you can play a shielded one. The good news against Orc control is you often will have that turn, whereas in other matches, like for example sometimes against Chaos or other tempo builds, you don't always get the opportunity to play it early. But against Orcs you often do. So we're going to take the Persian in Empire here, because our hand's not fantastic, so we're looking for a few more value cards, and there we go, we find the Piranha. We can kind of like just drop the drones to just rebuild the board again. But this time, of course, obviously the drones are going to be coming with their shields. And this is where we now start to gradually grind back that value that we've kind of invested in. But he's got Crump to get, so it's like emergency, look at this board. Oh, and he's got the Stormboy strat as well, so it's just a really, really strong turn, really strong answer. And this match is really fun because it kind of shows you that it almost becomes the becomes a game of like just drawing out answer after answer and after answer, and can he kind of close out the game? But he has to be the one to keep finding answers, because we tend to be the proactive deck that just keeps putting out the questions. But I mean, this is a pretty horrific board, obviously, but we do fortunately have, and this is exactly why we have this combination for these types of board states, play the carry-on tactics and the fusillade. So there we go. And now we get a free Burgeoning Empire from that. So again, look how we can just refill that board. And we're going to just stick out a blocker because our health is getting a little bit low, and obviously Zagstruck can have some pretty good reach. So we want to just make sure we make him deal with the blocker this turn. So Ghazghkull is definitely the target for long strike in this matchup. Whenever you're playing against orcs, orc control, you're really looking for Ghazghkull for your long strike if possible. Perfect kind of matchup, really. What we're going to do here is just basically drop the blocker. Because we've got the shield down, playing this now at this stage against Zagstruck's really important, because we know Zagstruck can win the game from anywhere from around here, to be honest. And especially when he can do things like this, like Will of Gork, then drop Makari and hit you in the face, things like that. So you've got to be really, really careful. But here we go. It's going to do hero power, put us down to 12. So actually, we're going to go with a cold star, I believe, here. This is a little bit risky. And oh, okay, so we only play one of the marker drones, and we make sure that we put down a blocker there, getting the extra health and the shield. So you can see Cold Star really coming into play there. I was thinking, God, that's risky there, BJ, if I actually went with both of the marker drones. But I see the thinking: get one down and then put the blocker down. And look, we draw out his fast. We draw out. These are the units that will be ending the game. So, phew, this is like enabling us to survive. We've now seen one Warbiker, so that's really great. He's had to use it to respond to the board. And funnily enough, the Cold Star is still standing, right? So this is where things get crazy, because we can really make use of the drones. Obviously, Vespid, all troops benefit from the +2 health, and the Vespid is with the armor really enjoys that. So he's a really nice combination with the Cold Star. Starting to understand, starting to come around to Cold Star. He's definitely a Cal Yorn card, right? He's a patient hunter, longer game kind of card, really. Not as I was trying him in some of my earlier decks. And even the DS8 coming down with shield, I mean, it's just such a nightmare. Remember, we've seen 2 no mucking abouts. We've seen 1 Will of Gork. We've seen the Stormboy strike with Crump the Git. So he's hit us with so many of his really powerful answers, which is why we're down to 8 health. Like, he has really been able to deal with that board. But now he's starting to get overwhelmed with value. He's only got 4 cards left. And we've played 2 Burgeoning Empire, so our hand is like supreme. And here, you know, we go ahead and I think, have we got lethal here? I mean, we have got the Honor Death Reel, but I think our hand was too full to get the Storm of Fire, so we were probably a little bit frustrated there. Obviously, if we'd just got the Storm of Fire, that would be pretty much GG. But instead, we go wide. We're not playing scared now, because we've seen the Storm Strike. We've seen a Will of Gork. Like, yes, of course, he's got 1 more Will of Gork, but you really beg the question: have you actually got it in your 4 cards there? Because the odds of that happening now are much, much lower. And plus, look at our hand. Like, we can just refill this board as we choose now. This is where the deck just gets insane in terms of its value and how it can just kind of take over the games. And there we go. Really nice showcase there of the power of Zagstruck. And I've got quite a few games now. I want to show you a game against Ghazghkull. Blaze is a really good player, because I think this is a kind of similar type of deal where you know, Oh, Zagstruck's better at taking out drones, but Ghazghkull here was just like even more the kind of like drag you into deep waters type of deck. So we're going to keep the Pathfinder and the Vespid there, not keeping hold of Longstrike. So let's see. It's going first. This is a rank match, obviously, so he... Yeah, I usually only show rank matches, but that last game was a friendly, but I thought it was such a good showcase of like that control versus our kind of late game value I wanted to show you. So here we go. Standard gun drone, pretty good against Ghazghkull early when he wants to pump out grots and stuff. And just help us clear the board. But, of course, the gun drone actually hits Ghazghkull, which is not ideal. Oh, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. He hit the grot. Good gun drone, well done. I think we just go for another one here. And obviously against Ghazghkull, like he's not playing for tempo early, so you can kind of be a bit more patient. You can just spawn your drones early game. So he brings out another grot and Makari, doing a very kind of like slow edging out value type of game. We're going to drop this time a marker drone. See if we can drop something on the Lord, I guess, is the idea there. And he gets his Grizzle Scarboy off, so he's armored up. So we're like, okay, it's going to be a long game. But what we are going to do is slam this guy down, and this is where we deploy the drone port, you see, to protect him. Because obviously into his turn 6, he's got answers like the Squig Buggy. Ghazghkull does struggle to deal with 3 health, unlike Zagstruck. So, okay, he manages to go with the Scorcher instead, but that should mean that our matey boy does survive. But he does obviously whack him to get rid of the long range, so obviously Blaze knows what he's doing. Good decision there on his part. Even though he takes a bit of damage, but it's only 2 damage because he's got his armor on. So now we drop in Piranha, dropping one of our bombs, just getting the value on the board. We do that obviously knowing that he's going into his turn 7, so he hasn't got a Will of Gork coming this turn. I'm putting quite a fair bit of damage down, so he's actually going to commit his Orc Knob, which is great. It's one of his good answers. And Pyromaniacs, I mean, he's only got 2 units, so it's a good Pyromaniacs, but you know, also we're somewhat happy to see that when he's only got 2 units on the board. Now then, do we actually choose to go with the experimental drones this turn? I think we do. This is what I mean about seeing these spaces. He's got no board. We can afford to kind of like we don't have to develop a massive board. Going into his turn 8, he just want a Will of Gorkers anyway. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll play for the value. And getting that down is really important. He goes with Crump de Gits. Now, this is interesting. Storm Boy. Okay, yep, that will allow him to clear the board and kind of take over the board. But look at his hand. One of those is Makari. One was his Hero Power. He's only got 3 real cards left. We actually draw a Persian Empire. We've got 3 small units here. You know, Makari's actually really good for Persian Empire, by the way, as are drones. You know, as our grots, these are all really good for as our scarabs. You know, these are all very good for Persian Empire to just quickly get that discount. So this feels like the turn to make use of the Vespid, get some really pretty good value trades. Okay, so we decide to just put down a shielded blocker and say, you know, work your way through that, just keeping the Vespid alive. And these are the turns where like we want to just kind of stay just ahead. You know, we want to be careful about over developing into like too much of a value Will of Gork for him. Using the Pathfinder here, really great way to just deal with this big annoying flying unit. I'm pretty sure we're going to use the Vespid there to clear that. Yep. Don't mind losing the Vespid with a veteran storm into a veteran storm boy. Then we're going to actually go ahead and drop the Honored Ethereal, and obviously it does ground this guy, but when he's got the shield on as well, it just means that we have some superb blockers. Now he does use his second Scorched Assault, so that's Paramaniacs and 2 Scorched Assaults he's used now. So we are making our way through his removal. He's doing really well, but he's using his resources. He's down to 3 units. So we've got to, again, like, we're into overtime. We've got to try and put that pressure on. Look, Persian Empire already down to 1 cost. We only drew that 2 turns ago. This is why I love this card. Draw in and go, okay, we've now got a full hand with another Persian Empire ready to refuel, and let's drop some more bombs. I think we're going to like try and protect the Piranha and probably Vanguard up here, right? And this is one of those boards where it's like, are you going to Will of Gork this? Because like you might need to, but I think he's digging for it there with the Prophet. Okay, well, like he's got it. But even if he did, we would be pretty happy with seeing a Will of Gork against this board. We've not actually used that much value at this point. Again, it's the accumulation of the combo that's giving us insane value. We're about to make that even better now with another Save Your Protocols. There it is. So now all our drones get even more ridiculously cheap. You know, like this guy now for 1 energy is coming down with shield. It's just insane. You'll see this turn. I think we don't over commit. I think. Let's have a look. I think we do put right. So we're attacking because we are conscious of the fact that, like, obviously he could just end the board with a Will of Gork. So it makes sense to actually attack in that situation and start to chip away, start to like force the issue and say, look, mate, if you've got it, you're gonna have to use it. I'm not just gonna sit here and wait for you to get a silly value thing. So we've got some value out of these units attacking. This is a board where we're like, you have got to have an answer. If you don't have an answer to this board, you're pretty much done ski. Okay, so he goes with Crump de Gits into Rock Invasion. I think that might be his second Crump de Gits that we've seen as well. So really good turn for him. And obviously, now everything's got flank essentially. He's going to have a way of dealing with this board. But you can look at our hand and you know what's coming, don't you? You can just see what's in our hand, what's waiting for these turns. You know, because we're always being the proactive one. But we have this answer too, right? If we do find ourselves in a board state where he goes wide, this is exactly what this combo's for. So he can't deal with this because it's in stealth, but now we can use our combo, basically clear the board, and we're up on board again. There it is, clears the board, and then we can just drop our own Vanguard and stick a DS8 down. And once again beg the question, have you got Will of Gork? We keep chipping away, we're smacking him here for that's 5 more damage that's come down. It's like, no, but I've got this guy. Alright, you've got to get through all the shields though. Getting more. Okay, he has the Stormboy combo, so for those who don't know, Stormboy gets to flank when the veteran Stormboy is actually on the board. This is pretty nice. He gets to attack. So again, you're seeing this kind of back and forth where we play the answers, Orcs have the answers. So we pose the questions with the proactive units, Orcs have the answers, but we're just creating too much value to overwhelm even the Orcs' answers. We all know how good the Orcs' answers are in this game. So we use our second zero-cost version in Empire, guys. Are you seeing this? So we can just clear that off for free with our long range. And then we can put some blockers down. Giving this guy 3 health can actually attack this one. Finish that off. Pretty nice. Put our 3 drones down. Now we can drop the DS8 in behind that. And then play a Save Your Protocols. So now we just, you know, we don't even need the Piranhas now. Now all our drones are free at this stage of the game where they drag us deep. And again, he's down to 3 cards. And finally, we see that first Will of Gork coming in clutch. Now we are low on health, but we've seen a lot of his removal. The only thing we haven't really seen is a second Will of Gork. So unfortunately, he does have his fast. This is such a powerful tactic for the Orcs, is you You will have Gork in the stage where you can also do this at the same time. So he manages to get us down to 4 health at this point. 4 health, guys. So now we're going to play Onshi. Got to set up the blockers again. And I think we want double blocker because we're scared of flankers. Now, obviously, where we would lose the game right now is if he has the second Will of Gork. But we're playing the odds of that, and we're trying to set it up to say, look, if you got it, you win. If you haven't got it, then you're in trouble. Okay, he goes with a random no mucking about. And this is why that card that's always been so good in the meta is actually slightly nerfed. It's slightly less good since the Tower have come out because it forces them to make those types of players. I actually think against Tau you're better off using no mucking about earlier where you can guarantee it. And that's a little tip for the Orcs, but there we go. Okay, and again we have this guy down, so we're going to make sure we use a Serene Unifier to get ourselves a buff, but you notice that we use this first to kill the squig because everything's shielded. So killing the squig now, all this will do is remove the shields, but it will actually damage the units. So now we can put our blocker down, which also gives us extra damage, and then whack the Serene Unifier for the buffs. And that's all she wrote, guys. Superb game there, really close. Really, I think shows off the power of like the Ghazghkull control and what it can do against us, but also how we can play into that matchup. So really wanted to show you guys that one. Yeah, I've been I played this one a lot this season. So let's look at an Onvar match. So we haven't shown you a Tau game yet. Okay, so in this match, obviously, it's not a mirror match because it's not obviously a Mesos, but it is Tau on Tau. So in this one, we do have the Savior Protocols. We're going to keep that. And we're going to keep the Stealth Drone as well. We got an interesting opening decision here. Like, do we go Stealth Drone into DS8? Do we want to play the Savior Protocols? We actually decide we are going to go with the Stealth Drone. One of the things against Onvar as well is sometimes playing a gun drone first is good because it stops him from playing the stealth drone if he's got it. But obviously now we can kind of drop both the DS8 and we can put our Tidewall drone port down, blocking him off from killing the stealth drone. This is really a hard start for Tau against us. He's got a good answer though, which is a buffed Vespid, which can obviously tank some of the damage from the DS8. So we're going to use the Pathfinder here. Actually going to keep this pressure on and try and play for the tempo advantage against Onvar. We know Onvar has a slight weakness in those early games often, depending on what they draw, but it can be a weakness for them. Given the nature of their hero power, it's not great on turn 1. And this is why we're already sort of like making him pay a little bit here. So obviously he's going to take that out now finally, but it's kind of done its job, right? Now, he plays the stealth suit. This is kind of something we talked about in the opening guide about the speed of it. And bearing in mind it's much better with Onvar because it combines well on turn 5 with Onvar's hero power for 1 energy. Not as good for Omesos. But still, we're going to actually drop the Savior Protocols that turn. And we're just going to put this into hiding. Like, hiding against hiding is good. Like, stealthing after stealth is a really good... Stealth is a good counter to stealth, is what I'm trying to say. So he obviously does go with his... and one of the interesting things he does here is he puts armor on there. That isn't something I banked on. And it's actually a pretty good player on his part. Sov's a pretty good player, to be honest. I think he's definitely in the top 40. And yeah, he's made a good decision there with the armor. It does definitely make that resistant, that board resistant to the DS8. So now we're going to have to really think about how we approach this. Obviously, we've played a Savior Protocol, so we know Piranha's giving us free drones. So out they come, putting on that pressure. And at the same time, we can go ahead and play this guy. And this is what I mean about the stealth drone being... about the stealth suit being too slow. Look how fast... Look at the tempo we were able to play that turn. Why would we ever have wanted to play you know, like a flanking crisis suit when we could have a turn like that. That was absolutely beautiful, right? Getting the discount on the drone after the save your protocol, discount from the Piranha, and then just flooding the board with all these free drones. It's just absolutely sickening. So he does the same again, gets himself another flanker, and see how it's like, it's kind of like falling behind a little bit. We're actually going to go ahead and just draw the broadside, because obviously the missile drones come out for free, and then I'm pretty sure we're going to go with a blocker here. Yeah, we're going to get ourselves a blocker. So he's got these like slightly bigger units that come on with the flank and everything, and but get the health buff, but we're just going around him. We're so wide. Yeah, he's having to deal with those missile drones. They could be a real problem for him. But this is quite nice that he manages to hide a DS-8 in behind the stealth drone of himself. So we're going to stick the carry-on tactics on this board anyway, just because it's so it's such a wide board. We can finally get rid now of his value generator there. And even with our little drones, you see with the carry-on tactics, they're suddenly doing 3 damage, which is super powerful, obviously. And then the blast from this missile drone, doing some damage off the DS-8. And we even drew from our Persian Empire, we drew into our AoE just to finish it. So super tempo plays there to outvalue, to out-tempo the Tau. And specifically the Envar. Okay, what was the next one I wanted to show you guys? So let's have a look at another mirror match against the Tau, but this time against Omesos. Gypsyn's the top 20 player. We'll have a look at this one. So we're going to keep that hand, right? Remember what I said? I keep the Persian Empire usually. I wasn't sure if I'd keep him here because it's I'm going first, but we decide to let's see if it pays off. So we go stealth drone, sorry. And one of the reasons, one of the good things about this match, like going first, is that you can then take out his drone. But because he's got the drone port, obviously, there, he does manage to block his gun drone, and that does mean that our stealth suit is in a bit of trouble. But the good news is we can hide the DS-8 in there underneath the stealth drone. So he manages to ping it off with his free 2 damage anyway, so that's fine. Our DS-8 puts him down to 1 health, which means we can trade with our Mesos. We actually use emergency dispensation to look for something. So what are we going for? I believe we're going to get a really cheap Piranha, which is a really nice draw off of that, to be honest. Okay, so we've got this scenario again, where we've got the stealth suit going up against... What have we got? Now, are we going to go with the Piranha here, or are we going to go with the broadside? Well, we're going to go with the Piranha. And this is because we can get both gun drones and play drone companion this turn. So once again, to combat this, we're kind of going wide. And we go with the blocker to just protect one of our units, right? He's going to have his stealth suit, and he's going to have his flanking crisis suit. Here it comes. He also pops the carry-on tactics on. Okay, very nice. It means he can use Omesos to clear this. So we can actually now take out both the real power units, which is good for him, the DS-8 and the Piranha. So he takes those out pretty nicely. Okay, so we've got a on-sheet. Luckily for us, we get the nice ping there, and that means that we can obviously trade our shielded on-sheet into his not so shielded one. Now, are we going to bank the Serene Unifier here? This is something that I usually look, you want to be looking out for and certainly thinking about. We decide that we're going to go with making use of the stealth drone to hide this, and that kind of makes sense because it's like the only other thing there is like, do you actually stealth drone on She to guarantee the Serene Unifier next turn? That might have actually been better there. It might have, but I don't know. It's a tough one. Like, both of these are brilliant units for the stealth drone, but just with that go wide board, maybe we should have protected on She. I'm not sure, but it turns out he didn't have an answer anyway, so now we can basically get the Storm of Fire. And there we go. It's a win in the mirror match. Okay. So next up, we're going to do an Abaddon match, because I think we've shown the Tau off, I think we've shown the Orcs off, I don't think we've shown... Oh, we showed one Abaddon at the start, didn't we? Do one more Abaddon, probably leave it there. Hopefully you're getting a gist for some of those key play styles with this deck, and some of the key cards that are different, like the version in Empire, for example, Old Star, etc. The emergency drones. So in this one, obviously, we go and put down the gun drone, and he does have a 2-drop. So, ooh, Hellfire Touch. Does he manage to get rid of this? He gets a bit unlucky there. He just damages the gun drone. This is where we actually go ahead and use the Pathfinder. So what I was saying about sometimes you've just got to play this guy even off curve. You've just got to use if you want to fight for tempo. Sometimes you've got to make plays like that. This one's a tiny bit awkward. The Crisis Suit's not amazing against Chaos, because like here he can just clear this just with what he's got on board, which gives him 4 energy to then develop the board. This is a little bit of an issue. Fortunately, he didn't really have much to develop, so we can kind of like take back the board, and we're going to go with this stealth drone here. No need to kind of play any Vanguard stuff because we're in stealth. He's just going to heal up, so it looks like a kind of later game Abaddon build. Now we're actually just going to drop the Enforcer. I don't think we've played Save Your Protocols. No, we haven't, so we can't get the drones. But again, it just says to him, okay, you can't take out the stealth drone unless you've got things like Traitor's Hate, for example. So does he get lucky on the Abaddon's Dark Pact? Takes a big 5 on Abaddon there to clear that. Now we'll use Drone Companion to put a Guardian drone down, I'm pretty sure. And again, just putting the pressure down on the board, not messing up this, because we still want to keep this guy in stealth. Okay, now he plays a serious unit. But unfortunately, he does that, and this is the problem Abaddon has against Tau. He does it on turn 7, and you've always got to be asking, has he got Long Strike into turn 8? Yes, he has. And that's the end of the game. So, hope you enjoyed that one, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.